They have no idea what planet they're on. Notice I said acting. Okay? And this is one of them. Oh, I didn't know if I didn't do the homework I would get a 0. Yeah, whatever. 12 years you've been in school. What do you get if you don't turn in an assignment? Well, now, as Buttercup and Powder Puff as we are now, I guess you get a trophy for, not turning in an assignment. Next. Okay, here we go. Find the population. You go in, you type in the population mean. I have no idea what it is, so we're just going to go on.
It tells you to get the answer right or not.
No, that's just me. That's just mine. No, it doesn't do that. It tells you at the end, tells you if you're a loser or not. It does. There's another one. We're going to go over all that. That's chapter 3. 80% of your test questions on the unit 1 test is come from chapter 3. I think I told y'all that the other day. You go through, you do these. Does Hubert replace your lowest test grade with your final exam? There's a story behind this one. I give y'all this question on 4 tests. So you get this question 4 times. I had a cat in my 120 class 2 semesters ago. Oh, he was a deadhead from hell. He was, what day is it? And he was in one of my dual enrollment classes, so he was a high schooler. I don't know if he was a pothead or not, but anyway, the whole point is he came to school with no pencil. He came to school with no paper. He came in 15 minutes late with his sandal-wearing, hair messed up, sitting on the front row. And at the end of the semester, he said, well, you had a test question that said that you replaced your final exam with your lowest grade because he missed 2 exams. He missed 2 tests. So he was wanting to take the final, and he thought he would at least get the final in for one of those tests to make a C out of the course. You see what I'm saying? And it didn't work. He made an F. So he said this question said that I replaced the final. Does anything on there say I replaced the final exam with the lowest grade? Yeah, Donald Duck's good. I think it's no way, no how. He answered that question 2 times because he didn't do 2 of the tests. But he answered it twice. And then he came to me after grade turn in and said, well, I thought that question said you replaced. No, it doesn't. Go back and do some more drugs. In your grade book, after your final grade, and this comes from the student, calls me after grade turn in and says, let's see, complete all your assignments. Which should you do? Oh no, this isn't one. This is where a student will call me during the after the week of finals and say, I was just wondering what I made in the class. Do I reply? No. What do you think grade book is for? Well, I didn't know if you had other assignments. You sat through the whole semester and you did everything on My Labs Plus and you asked me if there's any other assignments?
There are some teachers that don't put anything in. There are some teachers that don't put anything in. Different places, but that would be
yeah. Because that's double the work. Yeah, I don't do extra work. Okay. I think I'm one of those people that believe in working smarter, not harder. Just like I told you, they wanted me to put the syllabus and everything into my Blackboard class and My Labs Plus. I said, no, I'm not doing that. They're still fussing at me about that. Oh my gosh, I'm supposed to go into cardiac arrest. Now that's that peaceful return to the breath. Okay, so weight. What is weight? Is that qualitative or quantitative? Does the number mean something? Yes, it means you're either light or you're heavy. So it is what? It is quantitative, right there. Okay, so it's either A or B. I believe it's B. But we're going to keep on going. We're not worried about that. We'll get into that later. If you miss a question on a test and you believe it is correct, what do? You call Hubert 5 or 6 times. Or you send several emails with the last one saying hello. Wonder why the student got irritated and said, hello, because I didn't reply to her first 5 or 6.
I mean, I think screaming through attention. Screaming through attention.
Yeah.
That's what I usually do in my car after the test.
So ask Hubert if you can meet with him after class. So that comes from a student that sent several emails to me and didn't speak to me in class. And this was not a polycomp class. This was a class that met every day. So, yeah, I'll tell you what. Although covered in handouts in the first day of class, what is the best way to communicate with Hubert? Email him over and over so I can use it as an excuse because I suck. This is a student that waited till after grade turn-in to tell me they went on a cruise during the 3rd test. Y'all see where I'm getting some of these questions? There's a test question. Mean square footage, standard deviation. Now this question is like your homework. You have a table, and you put those. Okay, now this is a frequency distribution. We have to do the mean and the frequency distribution. And some people don't know how to do this because they have never done it before. Okay. So that's the question we're going to go over. What should a student do if something happens and they are out of class for a while, like a funeral, a high school event, or a wreck? Wait until after grade turn-in and turn in to the DAD. Y'all know what DAD stands for, right? It's a disorder. Dumb attitude disorder. I had to clean that up because snowflakes didn't like the word ass, even though it's the name of a donkey. They even used ass in the movie Shrek because Eddie Murphy plays a donkey, and he calls himself an ass. But you can't use ass in America because we are the United States of pansies. If you have incomplete assignments and Hubert puts a 0 in for the grade, what will that 0 do to your grade? This is one of the students that said, what? Yeah. Why do you take this? What? That's cute. I never thought about that. All right. So decrease it. This is a student. This is another student. Remember I had a student that said that she didn't know that the homework turned into a 0 if you didn't do it. This student, another student, same semester, came up to me and said, well, I didn't know a 0 would make our grade go down. What are you doing on your phone? That is not acceptable. She went outside. You need to go outside if you have to. If you take several forms of a test in Hubert's class, how is it counted? I take the highest grade. So you might want to make a note of that so you don't. Do I do that with the final? Yes. Do I do that with all your tests? Yes. When is the last day of class for this semester? This has a story behind it. I actually had a student come up to me and tell me, 2 students, different students, different semesters, came up to me and said, the first one came up to me and said, I'm offended. I shook my head. I said, what are you offended about? Judgment Day. You're being sacrilegious. I said, lady, you ever heard of Arnold Schwarzenegger? Yeah. I said, what was his movie called? The Terminator. I said, what was the next one called? Terminator 2. Judgment Day. The second woman, it was a woman, I'm sorry. The second woman came up to me and said, I'm offended because my brother's cousin's sister's cousin's dog was in September 11th. I don't put it up there to make fun of September 11th. I put it up there so nobody will what? Forget about it. I also put December 7th, 1940 what? 1. I asked her, I said, were you offended about 1941, December 7th, 1941? What's that? She didn't even know what December 7th, 1941 was. I said, case in point. People are offended just to be offended. Heck, half the time they don't even know what they're offended about. Okay, what is this? Is this quantitative? Is this discrete or continuous? We're going to get into discrete and continuous. Discrete is concrete. You can count it. It's predictable. Continuous is something that's measured. We're going to get into that. What is a volume of sound? That is continuous because it's measured. You can't say, okay, well, that's a 5. No, you can't do that. So whichever continuous is, B or what? It's not countable. There we go. Not countable is another word for measured. So what do you measure? Weight, height, distance, anything you measure. Volume, area, sound, anything. Work, all that. We're going to get into that. When it's the week of finals, there it is. Aren't I terrible? April 23rd, 24th through the 30th. If you look at your overall grade and it has decreased, what has happened? I will take B, but the answer is C. There's another standard deviation. That's pretty simple. We're going to show you how to do that. When does the homework terminate? Right before the test, at the end of the unit. That's why you have an outline, so you'll know. No, it's easier just to ask Hubert 5 or 6 times. Okay, that's Z-scores. We'll get into Z-scores. We'll get into Z-scores. What is the weights of Hubert's assignments? What's the only answer that's possible? Huh? A. Why? It's equal to 100. I give this question on my attendance. At Tri-County Tech, we have to give attendance quizzes on our online classes because we have to keep attendance in our online classes. No, I don't believe it either, but that's, shut up, you. Anyway, this is one of the questions, and 3 people missed it on the first one. I checked it yesterday. 3 people missed it. They put 30, 30, 30. Don't miss that one. If you miss it, you don't what? Tell anybody. This is another one you don't tell anybody. Why? Because there's only one possible what? C. What? Don't call I'm a loser. There's no telling what you'll get. And don't go to anywhere. Now, some of y'all may be old enough to know what BR549 is. Dang old y'all. There's a compute the range. Y'all can do that in your head. What's your lowest one? 183 minus 10 is 173. Bing! And that's it. You hit submit test, and look at there. You get your average. Now, I didn't answer hardly any math questions, and I got a what?
73.
Will people fail my test? Hell to the yes. With a 32 and a 38 and a 42. And these people procreate too. So, if you ever walk up on somebody and you ask them, who'd you have for math? Oh, I had Hubert. What'd you make? I failed. Back away slowly.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody and they said that if you failed this class and
you're stupid or you're what? Lazy. Because there's no way. Because I show you the material, you do the homework, and you do the test. Simple as that. Now, it takes 2 to what?
Tango.
That means if you have questions, you have to what?
Ask.
You have to ask. If you don't ask, squeaky door gets the grease. I don't say OIL. I spell OIL and DOG. Unless I'm talking about my team, Georgia. If I talk about my team, then I call them dogs, okay? But there's always some smart aleck in the group. Oh, well, you're not pronouncing that correctly. So that's why I just say OIL and DOG and CLEMZON, okay? Because if you say it with a P, you're a southern, racist southerner with no teeth in your head. Yeah, it's got a W in it. There's a difference between a DOG and a DOWG. DOWG, them dogs. Love my dogs. Wanted to go there when I was a kid, but couldn't. Wrong side of the creek. All right, so now we got to go back and pull up the ebook, and let's go over some of the. I think we go over how many sections in chapter 1. Somebody look.
Yeah.
1.1 through what? Okay, so we actually start in class today. So I'm trying to find the dadgum. There we go. Make sure.
You're on the wrong one.
It doesn't matter as long as it's 120.
Y'all got homework. How far have y'all gotten in homework?
Yeah,
There we go.
I did like all the yesterday.
Say again?
We're talking about the
What are y'all
homework.
talking about? Tell me. Y'all don't talk very much, so I need to know what you're talking about.
We're conspiring about the homework. No, we're talking about who's done what so far.
Oh, okay. Well, hopefully y'all have all started because it's reading. Chapter 1 and 2 is nothing but reading anyway. So we'll go ahead and I'll pick out the highlights. And that means you either put them in your notes or you highlight them in your book, whichever one you have. And say again. All right, the first one is the word statistic. Now, there's two things about the word statistic. There's two meanings. They're both spelled the same. I'm trying to blow this thing up. Hold on. Give me a second. Because I know somebody's going to, I can't see. So let me go ahead and get that out of the way. There we go. Statistic with a capital S means the branch of mathematics where you collect, organize, calculate, and interpret data. Now, a lot of you say, well, that's easy. Yeah, it is easy. But what's the definition of a lowercase statistics? The definition of the lowercase statistic is, and this is a Hubertism definition because it's not, that's what I do. I put things in layman's terms. Variables used for the sample. Variables used in formulas for the sample. So, if I have a sample population, then all my variables are going to be statistics, lowercase. So another word for statistics, lowercase, is variable. What's a variable? A letter used in what? A formula. Okay? Everybody got it? What kind of letters are used? Regular, alphabraic, or alphabetic, or whatever you want to call it. Regular alphabetic letters. And the ones you're going to be dealing with the most is X bar, which is the mean, and S, which is your standard deviation. Now, why is this important? Well, for some of you, y'all think that this class is meant for y'all to master statistics and probability and for y'all to be a statistician after you take this class. No, it's not. This class is for you to be aware of probability and statistics from a presenting point of view and a presenter point of view. In other words, if you're sitting in a department meeting or a division meeting or a whatever meeting and somebody throws up X bar, you know that's from the sample. If they throw up S, then you know it's from the sample. What is the sample? The sample is the smaller population. We'll get to that in just a second. So there's two meanings for the word statistic. Capital S means the branch of mathematics. Lowercase s means variables used for the sample. Capiche? All right. And next they're going to tell you about the sample, probably. If I don't cover it, then it's not what? It's not important.
Can you repeat what you said about the capital and the lowercase s?
The capital S is basically branch of statistics, branch of mathematics. Okay? Lowercase s is variables used in sample formulas. And usually X bar, comma, S. All right? Now, what is the sample? The sample is the subset of the population. Why do we use the sample? Because there's two important things in our world. What are they? time and what? Money. And when you are working for somebody, or you working for an employer or a corporation or whatever, all they care about is time and money. If they want to know something, if Michelin wants to know how many tires are being put out that are bad, they're not going to go across the United States and pull out every single tire. They're going to pull a sample, because a sample doesn't take as much time and it doesn't take as much money. And they're going to take the mathematics in capital statistics, and they're going to crank out a number which will be a predictor for the population. So the sample is the smaller group. Sample, anything having to do with the sample uses lowercase statistics, which means variable. What about the population? The population uses a parameter. Write that down. A population formula will use a parameter. P-A-R-A-M-E-T-E-R. Parameter. A parameter is the variable used in a population formula. How will you know the difference? Parameters are Greek letters. Greek letters. So if you're sitting in a meeting and somebody throws up mu, which looks like a backwards M, lowercase m, then you know they're talking about what? The population. If they throw up sigma, which looks like a lowercase o with a pompadour, okay, then they know that's a standard deviation for the population, you know. So you don't raise your hand and sound ignorant. Does that have a sample? No, it's not for the sample, it's for the population, because it's a Greek letter. That's why you need to know the difference between a population parameter and a sample statistic, lowercase. Okay? I'm not going to insult your intelligence by asking you what the definition of an individual is, okay? I'm not going to do that, because all of you are adults and you should know what an individual is. A statistic, lowercase. Now, that's basically what I told you. It is a variable used in the sample. Okay? There's two types of statistics. There's descriptive statistics and inferential. That's important. Descriptive statistics consist of organizing data. Okay? Example, your test grades. How many years have you figured your average in a classroom by averaging your test grades? For at least 8 years, right? Okay? So that is descriptive. Descriptive means that you are calculating your mean, median, mode, and all that stuff. That's descriptive. What is inferential? Inferential, somebody's already done it for you. Inferential is when you are using somebody else's calculations. What do you mean? Well, you go up to the DOT and you find out for the last 5 years how many people have died from DUI accidents. Okay? Is that your data or is that somebody else's data? It's somebody else's, so it's inferential. Capiche? So far we've gone over statistic, we've gone over lowercase and uppercase statistic, we've gone over sample, we've gone over population, we've gone over lowercase statistic, inferential, and descriptive. So what is that, page 4 and page 5 or page 3 and page 5?
4 and 5.
Yeah, 3 and 5. So write that down in your notes, page 3 and 5. Qualitative or quantitative? Remember quality, not what? Quantity. Quantity has to do with numbers of meaning. Qualitative, blondes, brunettes, redheads. Blue eyes, brown eyes, green eyes. White car, black car, blue car. What is your Social Security number?
Qualitative.
Qualitative. Why?
Because it's describing.
It has no what?
Actual number.
It has no numerical meaning. My number is 251. Mine starts with 251. Yours starts with 246 or 287. Does that mean anything? No. Now, it does mean what state you're in or something like that. But it doesn't mean a numerical value. Okay? So use, what about zip code? Qualitative. Those are two good examples of qualitative data, and it's two good examples of test questions because they love to ask those two. What about your phone number? Qualitative. There's no numerical value of your phone number. Whereas your height, your weight, your age, all those are quantitative because it means quantity. It means the numbers mean something. If the numbers mean something, it's quantitative data. Those are two test questions, so make sure you know those. I'm only covering questions that you're going to see on a test. Okay? If I don't cover it, then chances are you don't need to worry about it. These two are very important. Discrete and continuous. Discrete. Discrete, there's only one word you have to know for discrete. Can you pick out that word?
Countable.
Countable. Good job. You sure you're Brad Smith's son? You're smart. All right. Countable. Countable means count. How many cars are in the parking lot? How many people are in the classroom? That's discrete. Then what's the opposite of countable? Measured. Continuous is something that's measured. Let me give you an example. If I tell each one of you and Oconee to reach into my box, and my box has tape measures, it has cloth tape measures, it has metal tape measures, it has the carpenter's tape measure that you fold, it has a infrared tape measure, it has all these different tape measures. Everybody with me? A yardstick has yardsticks in there. And I tell you to go out in the parking lot out here, and there's a red fire hydrant right there. And I go out there and I tell everybody to measure that fire hydrant. Everybody with me? How many different readings will I get? Several. Well, half of you won't do it because half of you can't read a dadgum ruler. Okay? So half of you won't do, half of you will say 3 feet because you can't read a ruler. The other half will give me several different. Somebody will give me one of those tape measures has a digital readout. Has a little digital readout because you can't read it. So it'll say 3.125. And they'll give me that. What? Yeah, they do because they have to because people don't know how to read a tape measure. Anyway, some of you will give me a fraction. Mr. Smith, he may go out there and say, well, he said the fire hydrant, so that means metal to the top. So he might dig down in the mulch to find where the actual metal fire hydrant bolts on to the water line. And he may measure and get 3.5 feet, where everybody else gets 3.25 feet. See what I'm saying? And then you may have Miss Blackman, right? She might go out there and say, bump it. I don't even know how to read this 3 foot. Okay? The point is, how many different measurements am I going to get? I'm going to get 5 or 6 different measurements. Anytime you measure something. Let me give you one that you really can identify with. And that is the doctor's office broken scale. Y'all know what I'm talking about? When you go to the doctor's office, you weigh, and then you go home, and you weigh 10 pounds lighter. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Why? Because it is a weight. Anytime you weigh, anytime you measure somebody's height, anytime you measure a volume, if I fill up this milk can, I'm talking about an old milk can. Some of y'all don't know what a milk can is. All right? And it's 3 gallons. And then I have another 3-gallon milk can. It's made by a different company. And I pour that into 3-gallon jugs. I may have a little bit more from this milk can than I do from this milk can. It's volume. So anything that is measured is continuous. Make sure you write that down because that's two. If you're going to take a test at Michelin or Fleur Daniel, or if you take what do you call them things? Practicals. Practical, you take a test to get into your practicals or whatever, that's going to be a question. Difference between discrete and continuous, just like quantitative and qualitative. So those are 4 good test questions right there. I want you to be aware of these measurements. I don't test you on them. They're in your homework, but I don't test you on them. Nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. 4-0 ratio. You ever seen Andy Griffith? Hope he says 4-0 ratio. You have to watch it. Anyway, ordinal is the easiest one because ordinal means what? Order. That's the easiest one to remember. Nominal means does not allow the values of variable to arrange in a rank or specific order. That's the one that covers everything. It covers everything. All right, so if you ever have to guess, always guess nominal because nominal is kind of like the big umbrella. All right, ordinal, anything having to do with order. The number of people that come in 1st through 5 at a race. 1st through 5th place, that's an ordinal. Interval. Interval 0 does not mean the absence of quantity, your age. Does 0 mean that you're not alive? No. Okay, so 0 does not mean absence of quantity, so your age would be interval. Okay? All right? Where ratio would be like temperature. Temperature 0, it basically means the absence of heat. Okay? So temperature would be ratio. Those are 4 good examples of what I gave you. Umbrella that covers everything. Age is in the classroom. Okay? Do I have to put them in order? No. I do before I do my calculations. But ages in the classroom, you can write the ages of the classroom and you're done. You don't have to put them in order. But when you do put them in order, it turns into ordinal. That's why I don't test you on it, because sometimes it can be a little tricky, and I don't test you on those because you don't have to. I mean, as long as you are aware of them and you know the difference between them, that's all that matters. That's 1.1. So you got 3 or 4 test questions out of 1.1. 1.2. An observational study versus an experiment. The best way to explain an observational study, y'all ever seen these videos, or you've seen them on commercials, or you've seen them on YouTube, of people being studied for sleep apnea? And they're usually in green and white, green and black, because they're using a, what do you call it, a night vision camera. Y'all know what I'm talking about? And you watch these people toss and turn at night. Some people sit up. Some people get out of bed and walk around. Okay? That is an observation. That is an observational study. Why? Because you are what? Observing. Some people love to watch people. I'm one of those people. Okay? Just sit and watch people. Okay? That's an observational study. That's observation where you don't interject into the study. Anything besides an observation fits into experiment. An experiment is when you, so let's say I'm watching this person sleep in a sleep apnea study, and every time they turn over or sit up or get out of bed, I shock them with a cattle prod. That's experiment. That's an experiment. Yes. I'm sorry, I can't hear a word you're saying. What?
I know you don't like to repeat yourself, but for observational study, what was like the definition?
Observation is when you just watch.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't mind repeating myself as far as math. Because that's what you're trying to what? That's what you're trying to learn. All right? I just don't like to repeat myself and
Would that be the test question?
Yes.
Right there?
that would be a test question. What is an observational study? Or you are monitoring people that want to lose weight eating ham sandwiches. Okay? Is that an experiment or an observation? It's observation, because you're not. Now, what if a person eats a ham sandwich, you get them with a cattle prod? That's an experiment. Yeah, mayonnaise. Got to have mayonnaise, but it's got to have Dukes. There is no other mayonnaise. Okay. Observational and is there? I don't think there is another mayonnaise. I don't think they make another.
Where you from?
Yeah. Dukes is the only mayonnaise I know about. Anyway, an experiment is when you interject. All right. Let me give you a prime example of two that you can compare. Let's say I throw a rat in a maze, or a mouse, depending on where you're from. I throw a rat in a maze. And then, over here, I got the same maze, the same rat, but I got a piece of cheese in the maze. Which one's which? The one with the cheese is an experiment because I have interjected something into observation. What if I put a piece of cheese there with an electrode there that shocks him with the cattle prod whenever he eats the cheese? That is the same thing. And y'all think I'm grotesque or whatever. The reason I do that, it sticks in your mind. It's sticking in your mind about the cattle prod. So next time you put the cheese, is that a cattle prod? Yes. If let's say I go out and I count cars for the DOT. That's an observation. But what if I wave a sign up that says, I'm with DOT, people will turn around? Exactly. That's an experiment. Even though I'm not saying what I'm doing with DOT, some people are just paranoid. Some people ain't got no license, some people ain't got no... Y'all ever seen Live PD? Mm-hmm. How do these people get by without a license or insurance? How do they do it? How do they get paid? How do they cash a check? How do they do anything?
ID.
They don't have an ID. They don't have nothing. That's what I don't have an ID. Do you have a license? No, I don't have a license. Do you have insurance? Don't have insurance. How do they operate? You can't even get a bottle of liquor without ID. Yeah, probably. But it's okay. Bernie's going to take care of all of us. Everything's free. Compounding, I don't do that. Lurking variable, I don't do that. Compounding, I don't do that. What? Yeah, everything's free. Now, I don't go over census, but that's a word you should know. And if you grew up in the United States, there's no way you don't know what the word census is. Every what?
10 years.
Every 10 years we have one. And what is it? Information. You go by, you ask people. Technically, there's only like 3 questions that you have to answer. I can't remember which ones they are. The other ones you don't have to answer. Okay, but it basically tells you how many people are living in this area. It tells you how many people are living here, what kind of people live in here, what kind of people live in here, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Huh?
Profile.
Profiling. What does that mean?
I'm sure you know what that means.
What? There's only 2 questions you have to answer. I think there's only 2
They want to know
questions.
your race?
I don't think you have to answer that.
Your age. I think your age.
How many
I'd have to look it up, but there's only like 3 questions you have to answer. The rest of them you can decline to answer.
But that's just so money.
Huh?
Your area.
Yeah, you don't have to answer how much you make.
No. I'm talking about when they do the census. That will dictate how much money your area, the federal funding your area.
Yeah, that's where that goes. I think one of the questions, how many people live in the household?
Yeah.
That's one of the questions you have to answer. And I think there's 2 other questions. The rest of them, you just keep your mouth shut and I say, I decline to answer. So you don't have to answer them. But a lot of people don't know that. Knowledge is what?
Power.
It is, and a lot of people don't know that you don't have to answer those questions.
A lot of people don't answer.
Well, yeah, a lot of people don't. So, but anyway, I think census, that's a question that you might want to have on your what? On your mind, for a standardized test question. I'm not going to ask you that question because I'm not going to insult your intelligence. But most people know most people know what a census is. All right, that's 1.2. See, we're moving along here. This is nothing but reading. So, random sample. This is a test question, and it's also a standardized test question. What is a random sample? There's only 2 or 3 words that you have to remember for a random sample, and it's not on there. Everyone has the same what? Chance. Write that down. Everyone has the same chance. If I go through and put y'all's names on a yellow Post-it note, Oconee and Anderson, put y'all's name on a yellow Post-it note with a pink pen, and I fold it in half and put it in a fishbowl. Is that a random sample? Yes or no? Yes. Why?
Because nobody knows.
Exactly. Everybody's paper is the same. But what if I use a purple Post-it note for Mr. Smith? It's not a random sample then, because unless I'm blindfolded. Now, if I'm blindfolded and I pick, then it doesn't matter. But if I'm not blindfolded, it matters. When you're talking about probability and statistics, you've got to remember one word: non-bias. Okay? You've got to remember that word. Okay? If I see a purple Post-it note in there, I'm either going to be inclined to pick it or I'm going to be inclined not to pick it. And that's where bias goes out the window. Another word: neutrality. Now, if you blindfold me and use different color Post-it notes, doesn't matter. As long as you can guarantee neutrality, you're dealing with, you're doing good with probability and statistics. And that's where you have to think of 2 people, a judge and a referee. There is no way in Hades I would be either one of them. Okay? Because any decision you make, I chair the land use board in Anderson County. And I have people mad at me no matter what decision we make on that land use board. Okay? People come up and say, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. And we say no. And, they leave mad at us. Okay? That's about as far as I'll go, because there's only 7 of us on the board. There's not one person. That there is no way in Hades I would be a referee or a judge. Why?
Because somebody's going to be assaulted or hurt or something.
Exactly. You have to be right down the middle. And a lot of people say that can't be done. Yeah, it can. It can be done. But you just got to know how to do it. And that's why a lot of judges spend so many years, being a lawyer and studying law and stuff like that. And a lot of referees spend a lot of years doing refereeing, because you have to condition yourself not to be, either one side or the other, and that's the definition of bias.
I feel like professional referees have it the worst.
Yeah.
Like,
You've been watching the playoffs like every game.
Yeah.
I'm sure they have a favorite team, so.
I know.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
I know.
If my favorite team, I'd be getting
There's no way I could do it. There's no way. I mean, I'm not into sports that much, but I mean, I love college football. College football is my thing, okay? And, there's no way I could be a college football, because I would let Georgia score every touchdown. But that's just me.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
That's not supposed to be.
Why?
Because you're a Clemson alumni.
Just because I'm a Clemson alumni don't mean I go crazy. No, I love Clemson. I love Clemson football. I love Clemson, the players. I just can't take the fans. The fans are crazy. They make Georgia fans look normal.
Really?
I mean, yeah, Georgia don't blame everybody, okay? When Georgia loses, Georgia says we suck or we don't. They don't blame the referees. They don't blame the stadium. They don't blame, what kind of weather is at Death Valley at that day. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. That's where I draw the line. The fans, the worst fans in college football are Clemson fans.
Okay, that is so not true.
Yeah, it is. I
The
grew
worst-
up. I'm
the
almost
worst
50.
fan-
I think I'm 52 or 53, one of those two. And I have never seen fans worse as far as diapers than Clemson fans. And I've
Alabama
got
fans
2
are
degrees
so much
from Clemson.
worse.
What?
Alabama fans are so much worse.
They're horrible.
Well, half of them can't read. So, no, I'm just kidding. I'm talking about in the South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina area, okay? I'm just talking from experience of going to games, of being out amongst people after the games. Oh my gosh. Clemson fans, they will go to jail. And of course, the Clemson athletics and the Clemson footballs, they wouldn't give you air if you was in a jug. But these people will go to jail and they ain't never set foot on Clemson campus. That's what gets me. Anyway.
This is no lie. I was coming home from Death Valley. We were in the van. We had been at the Georgia Tech game a couple years ago. And Clemson won. And somebody comes over the radio and they're like, if you've been drinking tonight, you want to be careful because there's a roadblock at blah, blah, blah if you're driving and drinking.
Oh, that's great. You know, just go ahead and drink and drive, you know. Anyway, I don't know how we got on this, but anyway, random sampling is when there is no bias, there is no, the neutrality is there. Now, what if I was to, you know, fold the paper in the quarters, one in quarters and the other's that? That would throw everything out. Okay? Now, what's the difference between a random sample and a simple random sample? Well, a simple random sample, instead of putting all your names on a piece of paper, I would take all the females at Oconee and I would put their names on a piece of paper, on a piece of Post-it note. And I would take the one male, I would put his name on there. Then I would take the males here, put their name, and then the females. So how many pieces of paper would I have? 4. Right? What's the difference in a simple random sample and a random sample? A simple random sample is grouped. Write that down. Does everybody have the same chance? Yes. Some people use simple random sample because of time and what? Money. Okay, so simple random sample and a random sample pretty much are the same thing. One is grouped, one is not. Capiche? And I am right. Anyway, and I wish one thing, I wish they would really think about I wish they would reorganize the conferences in college football or do something about the colleges or the college conferences. And beef up the all children's conference. They need to, bad. I mean, even Florida State's bad now. I mean, there's only one team in the ACC, and that's Clemson. And they're doing good, and I give them all the credit in the world. They're doing real good. But they need some competition bad. Well, the SEC's getting about like it. The SEC, the only team there is what? Alabama. Georgia's good when they don't choke. Yeah, I know. There's a simple random sample. Simple random sample, I just told you. So, everybody good with that one? Now, we're going to talk about, those are the two best. Simple random sample and random sample. The third would be, I'm trying to find it, systematic random sample. If I can find it.
Like they just randomly selected for drugs occurring.
I'm sorry, what?
So, that's exactly the same type of test.
Yeah, systematic. Yeah, like every fifth person. Yeah. I'm trying to find it. It must be in the next section. Yeah. Let me find systematic because that's the third one. I like to give them in order because there it is. A systematic sample. Just like you said, a drug test. I know when I was in the Marine Corps, they didn't do everybody. They just kind of like grabbed, every 6th person or or every person that started with an M, or, they just randomly. But they didn't do all of us because, like I said, time and money. So the third most accurate would be your systematic. It's a pattern. Just put patterned sample. Every third person, every seventh person, every 100th person.
I used to work a job, and I swear to you, I got random samples.
Every time.
4 straight times.
Yeah. When I was in the Marine Corps, I got picked like 8 times.
Drug screen?
Huh?
Drug screen?
Yeah. So,
Your numbers come up.
no, they never found anything. That's one thing. There's 2 things I can say when I get to the pearly gates. 2 things. One of them is I never did drugs, illegal drugs. I never have. They didn't believe me down at MEPS. They gave me 2 blood tests. They didn't believe me. They said, "You're going to be thrown in jail." I said, "No, we're going to test you again in 4 weeks." I said, "Whatever. Never have done illegal drugs." And I ain't going to talk about the second one, but you ain't got to worry about me on that. But anyway, systematic is where every 5th person, every 8th person, you're going to be wondering about that, aren't you? Every 10th person, every 20th person. Okay? That's a systematic. What's the least? The least accurate is what we call a convenience sample. Convenience sample is if I worked at a rock radio station and I said, well, I'm taking a class at Clemson and I need to find out how many people, I need to do a survey and I need to do the statistics behind it. So I'm just going to do people that like rock music. And I go, okay, all my listeners out there, how many of you like rock music?
100%.
Why?
Because they all like rock music and listen to rock.
And I DJ at a rock station. So that is called a convenience sample. Why is a convenience sample the least accurate? Because it's convenient. And there's a saying that if something is convenient, it's probably not real good. Kind of like, if something tastes real good, it's probably what? It's probably fattening, yes. Same thing with this. All right? If a convenient sample is convenient, it's probably the least accurate. Now, what about the other 2? The other 2 are a cluster, a stratified. Separation of populating into non-overlapping groups called strata. Well, what if I divide both of y'all into male and female? Well, I can't do that because you're both human. Okay, so, that would be stratified. I'm sorry, that would be stratified because, there are really not many things besides human, and you're not going to get out of that. Now, could you do animals and humans? You could do animals and humans, yeah, but you can't get many animals to talk, so you can't do very much surveys with an animal. So, stratified is when you have very few things overlapping.
Like skin? Like this? Like skin?
No, like human.
Human.
Yeah, that's the only thing that's overlapping.
Oh.
That's your human. Could I do Democrat, Republican, and Independent? Yes. A lot of times you're going to see stratified when you're talking about voting precincts. Okay?
You do human and a female.
No, you would do, basically for stratified, you're talking about cluster. Okay? Clusters when you can have overlapping. Okay? That's what we're going to talk about now. So I could go to a voting precinct and I could do Republican and Democrat, but then I could say male and what? Female. And that's called cluster sampling. If I could ever get there. Well, there's a cluster sample right there. Okay? There's stratified. You got a population, you can break that population into, here's male and female. Okay? You can address it male and female, and then you can go down here and cluster sampling. I could take people at a voting precinct, break it up into what? Democrat and Republican and Independent. And then I can break that up into male and what? Female. So more groups are in cluster. basically grouping and clustering. You have overlapping. And that's not a test question on my test. I will ask you about random and simple random and systematic, because those are the most used. But the rest of them are kind of like standardized test questions. Y'all got to remind me what time class is over. I'm sorry, what?
2:35.
Okay, I'm just making sure. If some of y'all go into convulsions, I don't want y'all to go into convulsions. Huh?
I'm gonna have to cut out on you.
What?
I'm gonna have to cut out on you.
Okay, well, that's fine. Okay. I was just looking at some student. I guess they're trying to get to class. I don't know if they're in my next class or this class. Okay, sorry. Next. That's going to take care. I think that's 1.3, isn't it? No, 1.4. 1.5. Do we go into 1.5? Bias. This is what we're talking about. Bias. Bias in probability and statistics. Now, y'all see this is in the book. I'm not making this up because I had one person tell my department head I was making it up. No, I'm not making it up. There is bias in statistics. There's bias in a lot of things. Okay? Bias is the opposite of neutral. I had a situation when I was on the land use board, and a person came before the land use board, and this person was a person that was very negative in my life. Let me put it to you that way. Everybody with me? And I had to proceed with going over this thing. And, of course, the person that was sitting there probably thought I was going to turn down their request, but I didn't, because it was legal. It was good. It was approvable. That's called neutrality. Okay? That's where you do not let your inside influence your decision. Very hard to do sometimes.
I'm so proud of you.
I know. I've got to add a boy for it. It's very hard to do. And some of you may have been in that situation. Okay? But, you can't. That's not right. That's where you almost break into judging people. You can't do that. And, I get into a lot of discussions with my students because I believe certain ways and my students believe in certain ways, and that's fine. You can agree to disagree, but you can't condemn somebody. You can't condemn somebody, and a lot of people say, well, you're preaching. No, I'm not preaching. I'm trying to get a point across. You have to be neutral. In some positions of your life, you have to be neutral. You have to be non-biased. Okay? Non-biased. Huh? What?
Be that judge, that referee after all.
No, I can't do that. Because I'm having to deal with people, and I can't deal with people very well. Especially stupid people. A lot of people think I have PTSD and all that because I was in the desert and all that. I just don't like stupid people. Anyway, sampling bias, non-response bias. You either have survey bias. And if some of y'all are going to research universities later, like Clemson, and you are in a master's program or a doctorate program and you go into research, you'll have several classes on how to write questions. Do you ask a question? You're not going to vote for Jane Smith in the next election, are you? True or false? Is that a good question? No, that's a leading question. Okay, so you have survey bias, you have question bias, you have sampling bias. Let's say I want to make a research or do a research project for my class, and I'm going to say that something about good health, and I only survey people that go to the gym. That's bias, because I'm only. If you go to the gym, even though I've seen some people go into the gym. I have my own gym now, so I don't go to the gym anymore. I just use my gym. But when I went to Gold's Gym a long time ago, there would be people sitting outside smoking and going into the gym. And I'm like, really? And what made it worse is they wouldn't go in smoking. They would go in, work out for a few minutes, come back outside, and I'm like, something's. You ever seen that commercial about the shower with the carpet? You ever seen that commercial, having a shower lined with carpet? Y'all never seen that commercial? Where the woman goes, that's not right. Well, somebody's smoking like a freight train going into the gym, that ain't right. So, but people drink like a fish and go into so I guess that's the same thing. But you can't judge people. So you have to be sampling bias, non-response bias, responsible response bias, that's in the survey. Can you be biased if you're a editor of a paper? Could you be biased if you are a person that, what's it called, people on news? Anchor, a news anchor.
Yes.
They're very biased. I actually had a teacher, when we were doing these polycoms for the first semester, we had an economics teacher, and she was teaching from Pendleton. And I was sitting in the back working on something because I was early for class and I was waiting on her. And I had to leave because she was sitting up there talking about the different types of government. And she was going through communism, socialism, and this was only like a year or two ago, okay? And she was saying socialism, communism, name some monarchies, and we were talking about types of government. And she was doing capitalism and all that. And she asked a question. She said, which form of government do you think, and one of the guys that were sitting in the front row right here said, capitalism. And of course, most people are going to say capitalism in the United States because we're capitalistic. Really, we're not capitalistic. We're a little bit of everything. Yes, we do have a little bit of socialism and people don't know it. I mean, taxes go and help people, that's socialism. But anyway, make a long story short, she went off on him. She went off on him, told him that he was wrong. And I turned around and looked, because you don't tell a student they're wrong, for one thing, and you don't ask an opinionated question and say they're wrong. You don't do that. And then she started talking about that socialism was so good and all this, and I had to get up and walk out because I was going to say something, because she was out of line what she was talking about. Now, she went in and said that there's good things about socialism, there's good things about this, there's good things about that. That's different. But what she just applied, and then the other student, and there was an argument going on. Okay? Now, my point is, was that bias? Yes. Because she was telling that student that they were wrong for an opinion. And that's not right. So you can't have that if you're talking about neutrality. Have a good day. See, I made her mad. She's leaving. All right. Bye-bye. And that's a joke. She had to leave early. She don't that. And you're going to say, can you do it with polls? Yes. There's a lot of polls that are on TV and magazines. They are extremely biased. How do you know? Because the margin of error down at the bottom is like 6%. If you see a margin of error above 3%, throw it away because it's not even good. 3% is 97% confidence. 97 plus 3 is 100%. If you see a margin of error of 3 or more, above 3, then you need to disclude it. And a lot of people don't even know that. They just look at a poll and they believe it. You got to watch. You also have to look at N. N, that's how many people you polled. If I go out and poll 6 people on should we teach calculus every semester, and those 6 people say yes, well, that's not worth a flip, okay? Because of the large number rule. The large number rule tells us in probability and statistics, the more number you put into something, the what? The better the outcome, the more reliable the outcome. So you would never go out and measure, and just, if far as a national poll, you would never go out and just survey 100 people. Especially when the United States is at, 36 billion or whatever, 36 million, I don't know what we got. There's a bunch of people, okay? The whole point is you can't be biased when you're talking about probability and statistics. You can't be. If you are, then you need to get into another, just like a teacher. If you're going to be a biased teacher, you need to get into another profession. I don't think there's much bias in nursing. I don't think you try to help people. You don't try to kill people. So I don't think there's much bias in nursing. Huh? There probably has
A
been.
lot of times, so like I've taken care of someone in the ICU before, and this lady was like a repeated suicide, like constantly,
Or
like
like
6
somebody
times.
who comes in for like a drug overdose and then they say they're gonna get help. Then that's when you can have a little
And so,
bias.
yeah, like she's laying there.
Well, then you just take it with a grain of salt because they're probably not. Yep, that's a tough thing. That's one of the reasons I couldn't be. There's 2 things I could not be besides a judge and that is I could not be a small children teacher because of the way some of the children are treated. I couldn't take that. I'd punch daggone parents. I couldn't do that. And I don't think I could be a nurse.
I'm sure judges do have bias, but they have to.
Yeah, they have
throw it
to.
off. Like they have to.
They have to.
You have to like man out.
But I really don't. There's no way that you can be a sitting judge for like 30 years or 40 years or 20, 30 years and not be and be biased because somebody would call you and somebody would investigate you. There's no way. I really don't think so.
I couldn't. I would just get hard.
Yeah, I know. Think of a preacher. Okay. What if you had to be a preacher? There's no way in Hades I could be a preacher. All right. And that's bias. There's a whole section of you reading on bias. I would highly suggest that, not because of the test, but because of your own knowledge. It's good reading for your knowledge. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. This is an open question. An open question is good. You know, what is the most important problem facing America? Okay, now an open question is not good when you're taking statistics. Why? Because there'd be too many. You have to narrow it down, and you would narrow it down to this. Right now, what is the most important thing on people's minds in the United States? No, I'm talking about the things that are
Oh, the drug and epidemic.
and all the items, all the items that you worry about in an election.
Police brutality.
Nope. James Carville, a Democratic strategist, Raging Cajun, said for Bill Clinton a long time ago, it's all about what? The economy. The economy is what is on people's minds on an election. I don't care what election it is. Any election, whether it's a general election or whatever. Why? Well, that right there, that what I just asked you was a closed question. What is, and you got to give, y'all named off things I didn't even know. You got to, what? You got to list things. Now, what's another thing you can put below peer pressure? Other. You might want to put other, and then put a blank. And that way you can put the others that down there. But you have to limit your questions when you're talking about a survey.
Would that be an open question though?
Say again?
Would that still not be an open question?
Not if you consider it other as a catch-all. If you consider other as a catch-all, if you'll notice, a lot of your polls have other or no opinion.
Yeah. But if it had I'm saying if it had a blank where you can put anything in there.
Yeah, but it all depends on how many people you're doing. If you're only asking 100 people, like if you were doing a sample here at Tri-County Tech, and you're just doing 100 people versus a national. Now, a national, I would not put an other there. I would put no opinion or something like that. Okay? But, you know, that's one of the questions that a lot of pollers are being asked right now because of the upcoming election. 53% say the economy. And that's usually, and like I said, James Carville said it a long time ago, and a strategist, whether you're Democrat, Republican, or Independent, what do you study all the time? Polls, statistics, probability. That's what you study. And he said, it's all about the economy, stupid. That's what he told a newscaster. And it was one of the most famous quotes he's ever made. And a lot of people know it, a lot of people don't, but that's what he told the news commentator. He was from Louisiana. And he was very abrupt. You know, you ever met somebody that will just tell you what they're thinking? No, not me. I'm very nice. I don't call you stupid. I don't think I've called anybody stupid. I don't like that word. I don't like the word idiot either. I hate that word. All right. And I know what y'all don't like. Everybody hates the word moist. Why does everybody hate the word moist? I have asked that in many classes. I guarantee you somebody in here and somebody up there hates the word moist. Anybody?
I like it because my best friend hates it.
There, see?
I don't understand.
There's words that you don't like. There's numbers you don't like. Think of a word you don't like. You either don't like to spell it or you don't like to say it.
I can't say it out loud.
Okay, well, there's some people that don't like, the word moist. And every time I ask that question, there's somebody who says, I hate the word moist. What's wrong with the word moist? I hate the word necessary because I can't spell it. All right. What else do we do? 1.5? Do we go into 1.6?
No.
Okay. Huh?
That's it.
All right, so let's jump to 2. What page is 2 on? 2.1? $60. And what do we look on the outline? Where do we go? 2.1 and what?
3.
To 2.3? All right, so let's do this right quick, and that way we can get on the math as soon as we can. Okay. A frequency distribution. A frequency distribution is a 25-cent word for a chart. Okay? A chart showing a head count. Remember, blondes, brunettes, and redheads. There's 2 types of frequency distribution. What are they? Blondes, brunettes, and redheads. That's your qualitative. Frequency distribution. And then there is your quantitative. Quantitative, that's not spelled right. There. Over here, you've got what we call quantitative. Just like boxing and wrestling, what kind of classes? You have classes. And then you have a head count. What do you have with qualitative? You don't have classes, you have what?
Hour.
Categories. And a head count. So in this class, we got 2 blondes, 3 brunettes, 4 redheads. Classes, 18 to 20. 21 to 23, 24 to 25, I'm just making up numbers, 26 to 28, 29 to 30, I'm just making up numbers, all right? And this is 4, 3, 2, 1, 5. Those are frequency distributions. A frequency distribution is nothing but a chart, a table, with a head count. But when you hear frequency distribution, you think it's some kind of big mathematical operation. It's nothing but a head count. How do you find the total? You add up what? The head count. So N on this one, 4 plus 3 is 7, 7 plus 2, so N is equal to 9. 5 plus 1 is 6, 8, 11, 15. N is equal to 15. That's how you find the total from a frequency distribution. So make sure you hold your pinky up when you say frequency distribution. That's what it is. Everybody with me? I guarantee you when you look at the first time you saw frequency distribution, you were like, oh my gosh, what is that? And it's not nothing but a chart. Capiche? Relative frequency. Relative frequency is a 25-cent word for percent. So let's go back to the whiteboard. Relative frequency is a 25-cent word for percent. How do you find the percent of something? What number always goes on the bottom? The biggest number. Well, what's the biggest number? Well, this one, n is equal to what on this one? 9. So 2 over 9, 3 over 9, 4 over 9. 3 over 9 is 1/3, which is equal to 0.33, which is equal to 33%. That's called the relative frequency, or a 25-cent word for what? Percent. What's the n here? N is equal, what I say n was equal to here? Thank you. So you were the one that paid attention. 15. So let's do 5 out of 15 because that's easy math. 5 out of 15 is 1/3, which is equal to 33%, or 0.33. So relative frequency is a 25-cent word for percentage. Sometimes I believe probability and statistics was invented just so people could make bigger words out of smaller words. Wait till we get to histogram and bar chart. There's no difference. They just like calling it histogram. So everybody good on what is the relative frequency? And that's how they do it right there. You got to find n. N is 30. That's a good example right there on example 2, page 62. And that's a good example. So if I asked you to find the relative frequency, just find percentage of each one. That is a test question, so make sure you know how to do it. No yawning in class. No coughing or sneezing either. Oh, there we go, bar graph. There's a bar graph. They're going to ask you what's the difference between a bar graph and a histogram. Does anybody know the difference between a bar graph and a histogram? What is it?
Histogram, the bars touch.
Qualitative.
Hmm? What?
In a histogram, the bars touch.
Yeah, that's it. The bars touch. The blue bars, they touch each other. Now, I don't know who was around to invent a histogram, but to me, that's a waste of time. Okay? In other words, these two touch each other right there. And these two touch each other. That's the difference between a histogram and a bar chart. Is there any mathematical difference? No. So, I don't know. Let's see if we can find a histogram. I know they got to show one at least. That would be like a histogram, but it's still a bar chart because they're not touching here. They got to touch all together. Let me show you. Okay, okay, there's a pie graph. That's a good thing. That's a test question right there, but we'll get to that in just a second. Okay, no histogram. Okay, we'll just do it the easy way. That's a histogram and a bar chart. So I'm not going to sit here. I will not test you on what's the difference between a histogram and a bar chart. To me, it's ludicrous. That's just me. But isn't Google a nice thing? Oh, I wish I had Google when I was growing up. I use it all the time, especially when somebody uses a word I don't know. I have to go look it up. Why can't people on Facebook do that? Why do people on Facebook ask DA questions on Facebook when they can go to Google and look it up? I have to really hold my tongue on Facebook sometimes. I do, especially when somebody says, does anybody know where you can get a da-da-da around here? There's this feature on Google. It's called Near Me. It's amazing. I'm sorry. I should shut up. Maybe I should just quit. What do y'all think? I was gonna try to get y'all to engage in interaction, but y'all ain't gonna do that. So, especially Oconee, they're not gonna speak to me. They're mad at me now because I said something bad about Clemson. See, told you, they're not gonna talk to me. Okay. Appreciate y'all's interaction, Oconee. Appreciate that. I can't find the dadgum where I was. Where was I? There we go. No, that's not it.
Is that third K?
They just went away. No, the book has disappeared. Oh, thank you. Okay. Let's go back to the pie chart, because the pie chart is very important. Make sure you know how to read a pie chart. I didn't ask you to make one, did I? I said make sure you can read one. Let's say if I said n is equal to 1,000 here, or 100. Let's do it. Let's do real easy math. Let's say n is equal to 100 right here. If n is equal to 100, how many people are not a high school graduate? 12. Because you take 0.12 and multiply by 100. How many people have a bachelor's degree? 20. You take 0.2 and multiply by 100. Now, most of you have done this sometime in your life, especially in high school. If I ask you how many people have some college but no degree, it'd be 0.17 times 100. If the number n is equal to 1,200, you would do 0.12 times 1,200. You would do 0.17 times 1,200. Make sure you can do that, because that's not only a test question, it's a standardized test question. So make sure you know how to read that. Make sure you know how to read a bar chart or a histogram, which if you read one, let me pull it back up, because it's easier to pull it up here than it is in the book. How do I find the total of this salmon color graph? I add up all the what? I add up all those bars. 90 plus 53 is 143, 215, 268, and blah, blah, blah. 348, you'd add all those up. That's how, same thing with the histogram. 30 plus 50 is 80, 160, 100 and what? 95? Dang old. 215, 230, somewhere in there, 220, something like that. I don't know. You add it up.
That's just finding the sample. That's finding the sample.
No, you're just finding n. N is the total number that was surveyed, or whatever. There's 90 people that come from China, 53 from USA, 72. How many people were surveyed? You'd add all those up. So that's the question they would ask you on a standardized test. They'd give you one of these two, and they'd say, what is n? N is all those numbers added up. Or they would say, how many people are from France? And you'd say 72. Or how many people are from, what's the difference between the number from India and the number from China? You'd say 10. 90 minus 80. Those are just some of the questions they would ask you about a histogram or how many categories? 5. Everybody with me? Y'all settle down, Oconee. Y'all are mean. Y'all shouldn't treat me like this. I didn't do that. I didn't do anything to y'all. I've never had a class in Oconee like this. Oconee has always been talkative. It's all right. Y'all think y'all gonna pass this class? Huh? Got to talk, pass. Stem and leaf plot. I'm going to show you an example of a stem and leaf plot. There it is. What do? You organize your data by tens. or hundreds, depending on what your data goes to. If your data is all from 10 to 100, then it'd be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. And then you would put the number of numbers out to the side. I'll show you an example. Let me find one. Go to the next page and find one. Okay, here's a number right here. You find, first of all, you put all your numbers in order. And then you find out what's your lowest number. Now we can look at these lowest numbers, and I think 11 is the lowest number, right? So 11 represents the tens. Okay, what's the highest number? 48, right? Well, I'm looking for it. There it is. 48 represents the 40s. So your stem is only going to go 10, 20, 30, 40. And then you just fill in. How many 10s do you have? Well, there's an 11. So there's two 11s. So there's a 1 and a 1. So that means 11. There's a 12. Where's a 12? I thought I saw a 12. There it is. So there's 1 and 2. So there's 1 12. And then there's 2 13s. And then there's 2 15s. There's not a 14. There's a 16. There's 3 17s. There's 4 18s. And what? 2 19s. And that's what a stem and leaf does. So how many 46s do we have? 1. How many 48s do we have? 1. How many 32s do we have? 2. Because there's 2 32s right there. We have 2 23s. We have 3 24s. That's how stem and leaf works. And you can actually see how the data is distributed if you look on the side. You see, well, I can't draw with my mouse very well. You ever tried to draw with a mouse? Oconee, you ever tried to draw with a mouse before?
Yes.
Yeah. Not easy. Okay, especially if you're going sideways. All right, so you can see that it goes from, goes way up here, and then it goes down. We'll get into that later. So make sure you can do a stem leaf, box plot, same type thing, or not a box plot. It's called a stem leaf, and it's also called something else. Dot plot. There's a dot plot. Dot plot, same thing. All right? If you do a dot plot, instead of putting the numbers, you put dots. So how many 10s do you have? Well, in that last one, let's look back here. How many 10s do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So you'd have 17 dots instead of numbers. Now, of course, you don't know the numbers, and that's the disadvantage of having a box plot or a stem leaf versus a dot plot. Dot plot just tells you have numbers. The stem plot tells you what the numbers are. That's the difference between the two. But here you can see the distribution a little bit better because you can actually draw the curve. So that's the good thing about a dot plot. Again, do you have to make these? No, just make sure you know of them. Okay? Question? Right, complaint. I don't do it. We don't get into time series. I don't do that. And I think that's the end of that, 2.2. Do we go to 2.3? Good. I was hoping to get through 1 and 2 today. Well, 2.2 homework's about 15 pages long. There we go. This is very important. This is what we're talking about with the bias. Now, the only thing about graphical misrepresentation is sometimes it's purposely and sometimes it's by accident. If I'm a statistician working at some big newspaper or some big magazine, and I crunch the numbers on who's going to be the next president of General Motors, okay? And I do a big spiel, and then I give the numbers to a graphics designer, and the graphics designer has never had a math class in their life, but they know how to draw pretty pictures, okay? And they draw a nice graphic, but it's not correct. Is that on purpose or is that accident? That's an accident, and it happens, especially when you're communicating between a mathematician and a graphics person, two different sides of the brain. You see what I'm saying? Okay? And graphics does not have as much math as a mathematician, whereas a mathematician probably can't draw a curve like I could. Okay? Same thing, you know. So you do have some miscommunication between two, you know, entities. There is a breakdown, and sometimes you'll have it. Now you've got to watch these, and you've got to look at these carefully, because sometimes you can't see them. And I'm just going to go straight to it, because the easiest way to show you the misrepresentations is to just show you, you know, don't get into too much words, just show you. And the one I like is the one I always start with is the soccer ball. Now, you don't have to write down the whole question, but read the problem and just write down the gist of it. Just the numbers. Okay? What page is that on? 98. Page 98. So put a note in page 98 so you can actually look at it. Wake up, Oconee. All right, it says, in 1991, there were approximately 10 million participants in the United States for soccer. By 2009, this number had climbed to 14 million. That's all you got to write down. Okay? Look at the graphic. Is the graphic accurate?
No.
Okay, we got a no from Oconee. Thank you for interacting, Oconee. I hope they don't beat you up when you go outside, because I think they've conspired. I think they've conspired against me, and you may get beat up when you go outside. All right, so why do you say that? Well, in 1991, there was 10 million. In 2009, there was 14 million. So if you do a little thing called new minus old over old, and you need to write that down because that is a very nice thing to know. Percentage increase / decrease is equal to new minus old over old multiplied by 100. So what is our new number? 14 million. So 14 minus 10 over 10 multiplied by 100. 14 minus 10 is what? 4 divided by 10 is equal to 0.4 times 100 means a what? 40% what? Increase. Now, why is that not accurate? Why is that picture not accurate? Somebody give me a reason. Exactly. Look at the size of the little soccer ball and tell me how many of those could you put in the big soccer ball?
About 7.
Well, the whole circles in the big soccer ball is about the size. You can put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then the white partials, maybe 10. That ball is 10 times bigger than the what? Than the smaller ball. So is this accurate? No. That's what you have to look for. And not only do you have to look at these when you're talking about graphics, but you have to look at polls also. You would, what? Percent increase / decrease. I said that. You wasn't listening. You need to pay attention. Okay. Now, what I mean when I said you gotta be careful. You would be surprised on how many people graduate high school right now. They don't know how to keep their checkbook balanced. They don't know income tax. They don't know how interest works on a car payment or a mortgage. They don't know any of that stuff. And They don't know how to read a table or a graphic and discern whether that makes sense or not. Okay? It's all about knowledge. And you get a society of people that can't tell stuff like that, you can do anything you want. Think about it. All right? And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean it. People read this stuff. They read it in education. See, this came from the Census Bureau. Okay? They read this stuff every day in magazines and what? They even put stuff like this on TV, you know, like on news shows or whatever. And sometimes it's not accurate. And you have to discern whether what you're being fed is what? True or not. Or represented correctly. Sometimes, like I said, it's not on purpose. Sometimes it could be just a mistake. But that right there, I don't think that's a mistake. Somebody's trying to push a what? What's it start with? A, G, E, N? Thank you. Thank you for the interaction. I appreciate it. You know, by the time I spell the whole word, that means you're supposed to tell me, Oconee, that means what you're supposed to tell me. You know, you're supposed to interact. Settle down, Oconee. I'm going to have to call security. Next. They hate me. That's what it is. They hate me. I'm going to have to get smokestacks on my truck now. All right. Reckon it'll work if I wear sunglasses inside. Would that help? Y'all hate me, don't you, Oconee? Is that what it is?
Wait. What was the question?
Forget it. Case in point. All right, let's give you another one. Let's see, which one is the one I like to pick? These are some of the ones I picked for my test. So be careful, make sure you mark these as soon as I can find. Okay, here we go. Okay, they put I love when they put the question on the previous page. I just really love that. Okay, read this part right here. The U.S. Strategic OIL Reserve is a government-owned stockpile of crude OIL. It was established after the OIL embargo in the mid-70s, blah, blah, blah. The graphic on the following page depicts OIL reserves in 1977 and 2014. Okay, we can go back to the picture now. You don't have to read the question. All right, so I want y'all to write down the numbers on those two barrels. And I want you to do new minus old over old. Now, you don't have to use the millions. The millions don't matter. All you got to do is new is 691 minus 7.5 over 7.5 and see what you come up with. New minus old over old multiplied by 100. I'm not on the clock right now. I'm resting. What'd you say? 691. What is 691 minus 7.5 divided by 7.5?
91.
I'm sorry, what?
91.
And is it 91 or 0.91?
91.1333333.
So it's 9,100%. So there's a 9,100% increase in this reserve. Is that accurate? No, because that little barrel can fit in that big barrel maybe, what, 4 or 5 times? So sometimes you gotta look at things. And you gotta be able to discern whether you're being told the right thing or not. There's also another one. There's one. What's wrong with this one?
30%. Should be a lot more.
Well, yeah, you could say that.
It makes 33% look, because it's like the cradle, it makes 33% look huge.
But that's not it. That's not the answer. Well, it's one of the answers, but what is the first thing that should hit you in the face?
The percentage don't equal 100.
There you go. Don't equal 100. Always, you should have, when you're given a poll or a graph or something with percentages, they should all add up to equal what? 100 or 99.9, very close to 100. That's one thing. But yes, the proportions are not right. Okay? 33% of that crib should be down around the what? The third or fourth bar, shouldn't it? And 18% should be down, between the first and the second. So yes, you're both on both accounts. Oconee, you were correct, and I think Mr. Smith or what's your Mr. Gilliard? One of y'all said that, I think. Okay, so make sure you know those three pictures. Those three pictures are pretty good. If you can get those, then you understand that. Okay, what time's class over? I figured it was now. But nobody's having convulsions, so that's a good thing. Okay, you fixing to have convulsions? Oh gosh, what a surprise. I've been logged out of Mayberry TCTC. Hold on, I got to log back on to Mayberry. Oh, shoot. I got to do something about these Russians. These Russians are into everything. They're affecting my life. I got to clear the data again. This is ridiculous. Settings. I understand that with a home computer, but this is Track County Tech. You should. Yes. Where's settings? One day, I think probably 2050, Tri-County Tech will be up with the real world. One day. I'm going to